county building inspector. My job is to walk into somebody's house and tell them everything wrong with it, in writing, with numbers. Monday morning, first job on my list. Foreclosed house on Ardmore Street, new owner, needs a sign-off before anyone can legally live in it. I've got my clipboard, my flashlight, and a coffee I already regret. I knock. Door opens, and my whole body just stops. It's Miriam Vance. Same face, 20-some years later. Nice blazer, hair pulled back, phone in one hand like she was mid-email. Here's the part you need to know. In 3rd grade, Miriam Vance decided I was her project. She told the whole class my last name was a disease. She threw my lunch in the sink 2 days in a row and made me watch. She got a group of kids to chant a nickname at me for an entire school year, and I still flinch when I hear that word in normal conversation. So, small county, great morning, she recognized me too. I watched it happen. All that confident project manager energy just drained out of her face, and she grabbed the door frame like the floor moved. "Malcolm," she said. Not a question. "I'm here for the inspection," I said. "Malcolm, oh my God, I have thought about you for years. I need to say something to you. I need to say I'm so... Do you have the permit paperwork?" She stopped, blinked. "What?" "Permit paperwork. Should be 1 packet from the county and 1 from your electrician if you pulled a separate one." She stood there for a second with her mouth slightly open. Then something in her clicked back on, and she went and got a folder. A real folder, labeled in marker, tabs, and everything. Honestly organized better than half the contractors I deal with. I hated that I noticed. "Thank you," I said. "I'll start in the basement." And that's how the next 90 minutes went. I have a checklist, 40-some items. Most inspectors go fast and reasonable and let the small stuff slide, because we're all adults and nobody has time. I did not go fast. I did every single line. The basement panel had 2 circuits doubled up on 1 breaker. Wrote it. No smoke alarm outside the bedrooms, 1 hanging by its wires in the hall. Wrote it. Handrail on the stairs was loose enough to wobble. Wrote it. Water heater had no discharge pipe on the safety valve, which basically means if it overheats, boiling water goes wherever it wants. Wrote it. Back deck was attached with nails instead of proper bolts, which is the kind of thing that stays fine for years and then drops 4 people into the yard. Wrote that one twice, in more detail. And the entire time, she followed me, room to room, talking. "I was a horrible kid," she said, from behind me while I was on my knees under the sink. "I know that. I've known it for a long time. Your trap's fine. Your vent isn't. Malcolm, can you just..." She stopped herself, restarted, softer. "I looked you up once, years ago. I didn't message you because I figured you'd rather I didn't." Correct. She actually laughed at that. One short, surprised laugh, like it got out before she could stop it. I did not look at her. I wrote down the vent. Upstairs, she tried again. "I'm not asking you to be okay with me. I just want to say the words out loud once. You can say whatever you want. I'm still writing what I see. I know you are. I've read your report format online. You're extremely thorough. That one landed weird. Nobody says that to me on purpose. That's the job," I said. We ended up in the front bedroom, both of us looking at a window that wouldn't open. Egress window, meaning if there's a fire, that's the way out. It was painted shut. I put my hand on the frame and pushed, and it didn't move an inch. "That's a fail," I said. "How many fails total?" 11. She went pale in a way she clearly did not want me to see. 11. I tore off her copy and held it out. She took it, and her fingers were shaking a little, and for about 1 second I felt something that wasn't satisfaction, and I did not enjoy that at all. "Reinspection is scheduled through the main office," I said. "Not through me. Malcolm, have a good day." I walked out. No small talk, no goodbye, no explaining anything I could have explained. Got in my truck, closed the door, sat there for a second, like an idiot. She was still on the porch, holding the failed report in both hands, reading it, not going inside. I pulled away and glanced in the mirror. She was still standing there, and I was still looking. Rest of that day I did 4 more inspections and remembered maybe 2 of them. That night I sat at my kitchen table with a beer I didn't drink and pulled up the county permit database, which I have access to, which is completely legal and completely not necessary at 9 at night on my own time. Her application was all there. Purchase closed 6 weeks ago. Cash offer, low number, the kind you only get on a house nobody else wants. Electrical permit pulled under a licensed guy named Pablo, who I actually know and respect. Occupancy deadline in the file, and it was tight. Not impossible. Tight. And then there was the notes field, which most people leave blank. She'd written out a whole schedule. Which weekends for what, which items she was doing herself, and which she was hiring out. I read the whole thing twice. Then I closed the laptop and said out loud, to nobody, "What are you doing?" Because here's the thing. I have spent a long time being extremely fine. Good job, steady, decent apartment, no drama. And then one woman opens one door, and I'm reading her weekend plans like it's a message from her. Reinspection came back through the office for that Thursday. She requested me by name, which the office happily grants, because they don't know anything. When I pulled up, there was a folder on the porch table waiting for me, labeled, receipts inside, photos of every fix, dated. She opened the door before I knocked. 6 of the 11 are done, she said. Handrail, smoke alarms, the vent under the sink, the water heater drain pipe, the windows unstuck, decks bolted properly. Pablo did the deck bolts and the water heater. I did the rest. All right, there's also a new problem, she said, in the tone of a person reporting bad news to a boss. I made it myself, an hour ago. Basement. She had tried to fix the doubled-up breaker herself, meaning 2 separate circuits crammed onto one switch. She'd bought the right part. She had actually done half of it correctly. Then she'd put the ground wire and the neutral wire on the same bar in a panel where they're supposed to stay separate, which is one of those things that looks totally fine, works totally fine, and can quietly electrocute somebody. I stood there looking at it for a while. Is it bad? She asked. And here's where I did something I still can't fully explain. I could have written it up in one line and left. Instead, I crouched down, pointed with a pen, and explained it. Slowly, in normal words. These 2 wires look the same, and they're not, I said. White one carries power back out. Green one is only there for emergencies, so if something shorts out, the shock goes into the ground instead of into you. They have to land on separate bars, or the emergency path stops being an emergency path. So the whole point of it is that it's supposed to be doing nothing. Correct. Huh, she said. That's actually a good way to explain it. Move the green one to the far bar. Leave your breaker work, that part's fine. She stopped writing and looked up at me. That part's fine? The breaker's fine. And she got this expression. Not victory, nothing smug. More like somebody who'd braced for a slap and got handed a towel instead. She wrote it down carefully, like she didn't want me to see her face. Then she said quietly, "You just talked to me for 40 seconds. I stood up. I explained a code item. Sure, she said. You explained a code item. I wrote up 5 remaining items instead of 11 and handed her the copy. Our fingers didn't touch because I made sure of it, which is its own kind of admission. At the door, she said, "Same time next week? Schedule it through the office?" "I know," she said. "I already did." Driving away, I realized I'd never once in 11 years explained a panel that carefully to anybody, and she'd noticed before I did. That night, my phone buzzed. Unknown number, but I knew. She texted, "It's Miriam. Got your number off the county contact page, not being a creep. Question about the panel bar." Then a photo of her fix done correctly. I texted back, "That's compliant." She texted, 2 words. "You're very generous with your words." I stared at it for way too long. Then she sent one more. "Be honest. Do you enjoy this? Watching me fail a checklist over and over?" And I typed, deleted, and finally sent. "I enjoy accurate paperwork." She sent back a single laughing emoji. I sat there in my kitchen almost smiling at my own phone like a lunatic. 4 days later, 3rd visit. She'd knocked out the rest of the list except one, and she'd also done something nobody asked her to do. The hallway where the smoke alarm had been ripped out was patched with new drywall. And it was good. Not homeowner good. Actually good. The seams were flat. The corners were clean. No ridge you could feel with your hand. I ran my palm along it twice, looking for the bad spot, and there wasn't one. "That's not on my list," I said. "I know. It was ugly, and it bothered me. It's the best drywall work I've seen in a private home this year." And she lit up. Not a polite thank you. Her whole face changed, like somebody plugged her in. She turned away fast and pretended to check something on her clipboard, which is a move I recognized, because it's mine. Then she said, "Okay, I have to tell you something, or that compliment is going to sit in my chest wrong. Go ahead." I didn't do the drywall. A guy named Declan did it one afternoon, and I paid him for it. She said it fast, like ripping tape off. But I sat on the floor and watched the whole thing. I asked him questions until he got annoyed. I did the second coat myself while he corrected me. I could do the next one alone. I stood there holding my clipboard. Here is what she could have done. She could have said thank you and taken the compliment, and I never would have known. Nobody ever tells me the truth about who actually did the work. Contractors lie to me about it weekly. You could have just let me think it was you, I said. Yeah, she said. I've done enough lying about who I am to you. That sentence landed somewhere I wasn't guarding. I didn't answer it. I said, the second coat is the hard part. That's the part you did. Is that you giving it back to me? That's me stating a fact. Sure, she said. Facts. Last item on the list was the back bedroom window. Old wood frame, sash weights, the whole thing was original to the house. It had to open and stay open on its own, because that's the fire exit for that room, and a window that slams shut on somebody climbing out is worse than no window. We both ended up at it. She held the sash up while I got my light in on the pulley and the rope inside the frame. And we were close. Like, my shoulder was behind hers, her hair was right there. I could smell whatever she'd been painting with, and also her, and my flashlight hand was maybe 4 inches from her wrist. I noticed. She noticed. I know she noticed because her breathing changed and she went completely still, holding that window up like she'd been told not to move. Normal me steps back. Immediately, without thinking, because that's who I am and that's what a person does when they're standing that close to somebody they're supposed to hate. I didn't step back, neither did she. We stayed there for probably 4 seconds, which is nothing, and also is a very long time when nobody is talking and one of you is holding a window. Then I said, "Rope's frayed. That's your last item," and my voice came out wrong, too flat, like a guy reading a card. "Rope," she said. "Got it." She let the window down slow. I wrote the item. Neither of us mentioned it. I got to my truck and sat there with my hand on the key, doing math I did not want to do. 1 item left on the list. 1 item, and then I have no reason to come back here. Next visit, the window rope was replaced. The sash slid up smooth, but when I let go, it crept down an inch. Better, not done. The rope was new. The weight she'd bought was too light, which meant 1 more visit after this one. I wrote it up and felt something suspiciously close to relief. "Coffee?" she said. "It's already made. I'm not being weird, I make too much every morning." And I stood there for probably 3 full seconds doing the whole internal argument. County inspector. Active file. Don't sit down in a homeowner's kitchen. "Sure," I said. So we sat at her kitchen counter on 2 folding chairs, because she doesn't own kitchen stools yet, and she poured coffee into a mug that said, "World's okayest golfer," which she said came with the house. "Can I ask you something that isn't code?" I said. "Please." "Why this house?" "You had a cash offer. You could have bought something that wasn't a disaster." She turned the mug around a couple times. "Because I wanted to know if I could do it, not pay someone to do it. Actually do it with my hands, and have somebody with authority tell me it was good enough." She shrugged. "I run projects for a living. I'm good at it. But it's all spreadsheets and other people's work. I wanted one thing that was mine and real. That's a stupid reason to buy a house with a nailed-on deck." "It absolutely is," she said. "I stand by it." And I laughed. Out loud, 1 short bark of a laugh before I could stop it. Her face did something at that, and she looked down at her coffee fast. Then she put the mug down. "Malcolm, do you remember the specific things?" And the temperature in the room just dropped out. "Yes, say one." "You don't want that." "I do," she said. "I really do." So I said it. "You called my last name a disease. You told people it was catching. For most of a year, if I sat down at a lunch table, everybody got up. Not because they hated me, because you'd made it a game, and nobody wanted to be the next one it happened to." She didn't move. "You threw my lunch in the sink twice," I said. "Ran the water on it. Made me stand there. And there was a nickname you started that I still hear in normal conversation. And my whole body goes cold, and I'm 34 years old. Quiet. I still remember which sink," I said. "Second one from the door." She had her hands flat on the counter. When she finally spoke, her voice was wrecked, but she didn't cry, and she didn't reach for me. "Okay," she said. "That's all true. I remember the lunch. I don't remember the nickname, and I hate that, because you've carried it for 26 years and I dropped it. I waited for the excuse. Everybody has one. Kids are kids. I was young. I didn't know. She didn't do it. My house was bad then, she said. That's context, not a defense. My mom was drinking and my dad was gone and I was scared every night. And I figured out at school that if I picked one person and worked on him, everybody looked at him instead of me. She stopped, started again. You were quiet and you followed the rules and you never fought back. So I picked you. That's the actual reason? It wasn't personal, which honestly makes it worse. I sat with that. It does make it worse, I said. I know. I spent a lot of years thinking there was something about me, something you could see. There wasn't, she said. You were just easy to reach. And she didn't ask me to forgive her. She didn't ask if we were okay. She picked up my empty mug, put it in the sink, and said, "Thank you for saying the specific thing. Nobody ever makes me hear it." I got my clipboard. At the door I said, "Wrong weight for the sash. Get the 4-pound one." 4 pounds, she said. Got it. Halfway to the truck, I realized I'd stayed 40 minutes on a 5-minute visit. And I realized I wasn't angry, which was somehow worse, because angry I know how to do. About a week later, I was back for the sash weight, which takes 2 minutes to check. I stayed almost an hour. By then she'd also opened up a wall in the back bedroom to fix a soft spot in the floor, and she'd rebuilt the frame around it herself. 2x4s, new sill, everything square. I measured the door frame next to it out of habit and it was dead level. "Who did this?" I said. "Me, alone." Pablo looked at it after and said it was fine. She paused. He also said, quote, "That's a weirdly good corner." "It is a weirdly good corner." She was leaning in the doorway with her arms crossed, watching me work, and I could feel her watching me. Not nervous watching, interested watching. "Framing like that isn't beginner work," I said. "You learned fast." I had motivation. Somebody wrote me an 11-item list on day 1, like I'd committed a crime. You had committed 11 crimes. 11 very small crimes. One of them was a deck that would have collapsed with people on it. Okay, 1 medium crime. I wrote the sash weight as passing. Then I asked something that had nothing to do with anything. "Are you flipping this place or living in it?" She went still for a second. "Living in it. Why?" "Just wondering." "No, you weren't," she said. "You never just wonder. You measure things." And she was right, and I had no cover, so I said, "Fine. I was wondering if you were going to be around." She didn't jump on it. She just nodded slowly and said, "I'm going to be around." Then she tilted her head at me. "Do you know you have a face? Like a specific face. You've had it in every single room of this house." "I have a face. Resting inspector face," she said. "Like the room personally disappointed you, and you're deciding how to write it up." "That's just my face." "That's the problem. You've got one too," I said. "Every time I open my clipboard, you look like you're waiting for a jury." She laughed so hard, she had to put a hand on the doorframe. Then she said, "That's fair. That's completely fair." Resting anxiety face. "Your words. You started it. I stated a fact." "You always state a fact," she said. "It's honestly kind of your thing." And there it was. That thing where two people are just enjoying each other, out loud, with no cover story. I picked up my clipboard because I needed to hold something. On my way out, she said, "1 item left, right?" The floor patch after the framing. "After you close it up, yes. Then final walkthrough." "Then you're done with me," she said. Light tone. Not a light sentence. I said, "Then the file closes." Which is not the same thing, and we both heard that. 5 days after that was the last one. I want to say I dragged it out. I didn't have to. She'd closed the wall, patched the floor, everything clean. I walked the whole house top to bottom and did the full checklist again from item 1, because that's the job, and also because it took longer. Every item passed, panel correct, alarms in place, handrail solid, deck bolted, window opens and stays open. The floor she framed herself, solid as anything in the building. She followed me the entire walkthrough, same as the first day, room to room. Except the first day she was chasing me trying to apologize, and I wouldn't look at her. And this time, she was just walking with me, and I kept saying things out loud that I normally only write down. At the front door, I signed it. Certificate of occupancy approved, meaning she can legally live in her own house. I tore off her copy and held it out, and she took it and read it like it was a test score. "That's everything," she said. "That's everything. 11 items, all cleared. You've got no open violations. Congratulations." She stood there holding the paper with both hands, the exact way she'd held the failed one on the porch on the first day. Same grip, different piece of paper. And then neither of us moved, because there was no next visit, no item, no reinspection, no office to schedule through. The reason I was allowed to be standing in her house had just been stamped and signed by me personally, and now it was gone. I heard myself say, "Well, yeah," she said. "Well." Then she said, "Do you want a beer?" I should have said no. My truck was right there. I had a county magnet on the door and everything. "Yeah," I said. "Okay." So we ended up on the porch, the deck she'd bolted properly, sitting on the steps because she still doesn't own chairs. 2 beers, sun going down over a street full of houses that all needed work. We didn't talk for a while, long enough that it stopped being comfortable and started being something else. I could hear her swallow. I could hear a kid on a bike 3 houses down. I kept thinking, say something normal. And every normal thing I came up with was a lie. She broke first. "I'm not going to ask you to forgive me," she said. "I've done that once already, and it wasn't fair to put on you. Okay? But I want you to know I think about it, not in a general way, specifically." She rolled the bottle between her hands. "There was a girl in my department 2 years ago. New hire. Everybody decided she was annoying. I watched a group text form about her, and I got out of it and I shut it down, and everybody thought I was being uptight. She looked at the street. That was you. In my head, that was you. It's been you every time. And something in me just snapped sideways. So I'm a lesson," I said. "That's not—" "No, that's great. I'm glad it was useful. I got to be the thing that made you a better manager." My voice came out louder than I've used in maybe 10 years. Do you know what I got out of it? I eat lunch at my desk. 34 years old. Never in a break room, not once at any job. Because a room full of people at a table does something to my chest. She didn't flinch and she didn't argue. "I know that's on me now," I said. "I know it, but you got a story about growth and I got a habit I can't put down." "You're right," she said, quiet. "That's the ugly math of it. I got to become a person and you got the bill. Don't make it a nice sentence." "Sorry." We sat there. My hands were shaking a little, which was annoying. Then she said, "You can be mad at me out loud, you know. You've been extremely polite about this for 3 weeks. You wrote it in a report instead." And that got me because it was true, and because nobody has ever caught me doing that before. "Fine," I said. "You want out loud? Here's out loud." And then I said the thing I'd been sitting on. The night after the first inspection, I went home and pulled up your permit file. On my own laptop, at 9 at night. Read your whole application. Your closing date, your contractor, your budget. You wrote out your weekend schedule in the notes field, and I read it twice. She turned her head. "I sat at my kitchen table," I said, "and I read a woman's drywall schedule like it was a letter. And the whole time I was thinking, I hate her. I have hated her since I was 8 years old. And I could not stop reading it. Malcolm, I failed you on 11 items," I said, "and half of me wanted you to fail so you'd have to call the office again. My throat was doing something stupid. So no, you don't get to be the only one carrying something weird here." She put her beer down on the step, carefully, like it mattered where it went. "I requested you by name," she said, "every single time. The office asked if any inspector was fine, and I said no. I know, I saw it on the file. You saw it and you never said anything? What was I going to say? Literally anything," she said. "You said the word compliant to me for 3 weeks. And we both sort of laughed. Badly. Wrecked laughing, both of us with red faces, sitting on her steps in the dark with the streetlight buzzing on. "So what is this?" she said. "I don't know. Do you want it to be something?" And I didn't answer, because my mouth wouldn't work. I just didn't move away when she shifted closer on the step. She noticed that. She always notices. She was close enough now that our shoulders were touching on the step. She didn't grab me. She didn't lean in and go for it. She said, "I need you to say a word. Any word. If you say no, I'll get up and go inside and we never talk about it. And I want to be clear about something. I have spent 26 years having no power in this particular story." And right there, on a step, she handed me the whole thing and just waited. I said, "Yes." And then it was not careful at all. It was both of us at once, hard, my hand in her hair and her fist in my shirt, and I heard her bottle tip over and roll down the steps, and neither of us went after it. It wasn't sweet. It was like arguing with a different part of your body. She kept pulling me closer like she was proving something, and I know I was doing the same, and at some point I realized I was gripping the back of her neck like she might disappear. We knocked my clipboard off the step. 26 years, and my clipboard went into a bush. We pulled apart, breathing like we'd run somewhere. Her mouth was wrecked and her hair was ruined, and she was staring at me with this stunned look. She laughed, nervous. "Okay. That was probably a terrible idea," I said. "Definitely," she said. "Absolutely terrible. Neither of us moved an inch." "I signed off on your occupancy certificate 90 minutes ago," I said. "Is that a problem? It's not illegal. It's just extremely stupid." I rubbed my face. If somebody asked me a hard question about my visit count on this house, I'd sweat. "Would you have passed the house if you didn't like me?" I actually thought about it. "Yes, it passes. It's a good house now. That's the only part I'm sure about." "Then you're fine," she said. "You were mean to me for 3 weeks. Nobody's going to accuse you of favors." "I wasn't mean. I was thorough. You wrote the deck up twice. The deck was a death trap. You wrote it up twice, Malcolm." And we both cracked, sitting there on her steps in the dark, laughing at a deck with her lipstick basically on my collar. Then the whole thing dropped out from under me at once, because this was the girl from the lunchroom. That is not a feeling I can describe as fun. I stood up too fast and said, "I have to go." She didn't argue. She didn't reach for me. She just said, "Okay." And then, "Your clipboard's in the bush." I got the clipboard, drove home, sat in my parking lot for a long time. All the next day I told myself I wasn't going back. I told myself that for 9 straight hours, through 4 inspections and a truly hostile conversation with a contractor about stairs. Then, at 7 that evening, I was parked in front of her house with no clipboard, no file, no reason. Which is the first time in 11 years I've been at an address for no reason. She opened the door in gray sweatpants with paint all over them and a t-shirt that had clearly lost a fight with a roller. Hair up, no makeup, holding a paintbrush. She looked at my empty hands. "No clipboard," she said. "No clipboard. So, this is a personal visit. Don't make me say it. I'm going to make you say it. It's a personal visit," I said. And she smiled in a way that I felt somewhere behind my ribs. And then she took a step back and left the door wide open, which is a thing you can do instead of a sentence. I went in. The living room smelled like paint, and one wall was half done in a color I'd have called beige, and she'd probably call something insane. She set the brush across the top of the can, careful, because of course she did. "For the record," she said, "I'm not going to pretend I didn't want you to come back. I noticed. I'm just not going to pretend about it. I'm done pretending around you. I did that when I was 8 and it went badly for both of us." And that was the last full sentence either of us managed for a while. Afterward, we were flat on her living room floor, on a drop cloth, because there's no furniture in there yet. My shirt had paint on it. Her ceiling has a water stain shaped like a boot that I noticed and decided not to mention professionally. She was quiet for a minute. Then she said, "Malcolm, yeah, can you ever actually forgive me? Not tonight, ever." And the honest answer sat in my mouth like a rock. I could have lied. It would have been easy, and she'd have let me. "I don't know," I said, staring at her boot-shaped water stain. "That's the real answer. Some days I look at you, and there's nothing in the way at all. Then somebody says a certain word in a break room, and I'm 8 again." She didn't cry, and she didn't push. She said, "Okay. Thank you for not making that up. You wanted a better answer. I wanted a true one," she said. "I've had people forgive me fast to make themselves comfortable. It's worthless." And she reached over and put her hand flat on my chest. Not romantic exactly, more like checking something. Then she left it there. I let her. After that, it became a thing without either of us naming it. A few days later, I texted her, "Reminder that your handrail is compliant and my standards are high." She sent back a laughing emoji and a photo of a wall painted the color she'd been threatening. I texted, "That's beige." She texted, "It's called morning linen." I texted, "It's beige and it's within code." So, that was the new normal. 2-3 nights a week. She'd feed me because I'm bad at eating dinner. I'd fix something because she owns a house built in 1948. Somewhere in there, I started keeping a spare shirt in my truck, and I want you to understand that I did not decide to do that. It just happened, and then it was a fact. And we never said one word about what it was. Not boyfriend, not girlfriend, not dating. She never asked, which at first felt generous and then started feeling like something else. Like she was staying very still so I wouldn't spook. One night she said, "My friend Dara asked who I've been seeing." "What did you say?" A pause. I said, "It's complicated." "That's fair." "Is it?" she said. And then she let it go, which she almost never does, and I noticed that too. About a week and a half after that, we were at the big hardware store on Route 9 on a Saturday. Her idea. She needed a threshold for the back door, and I know which brand doesn't warp. We were in aisle 12 arguing about caulk, genuinely arguing. She wanted the cheap stuff. "It's a bathroom," I said. "Buy the one that doesn't turn black. It's $4 more. It's $4 more one time, or it's a weekend of your life in 2 years." And she was laughing at me with her hand on my arm, and I was holding a tube of caulk like a lawyer holding evidence. Then somebody said, "Malcolm, Georgia, from my office. Plans reviewer, sits 2 desks down, has known me for 6 years, and has never once seen me with a person." My body went cold in a very specific way. "Hey, Georgia," I said, and Georgia looked at Miriam, and at Miriam's hand still on my arm, and she smiled the way people smile when they've just found out something they're going to enjoy. "Hi," she said to Miriam. Then to me, delighted, "Is this your girlfriend?" And I said nothing. Not a joke. Not a no. Not a yes. I stood in aisle 12, holding $4 more caulk, and produced exactly 0 words, for what was probably 2 seconds and felt like a fiscal quarter. Miriam pulled her hand off my arm. Not fast, not dramatic, just moved it back to the card handle. And she said, easy as anything, "I'm Miriam. He inspected my house. He failed me on 11 items. Georgia laughed. "That sounds like him." "He wrote the deck up twice," Miriam said. "The deck was a death trap," I said, and it came out wrong, too late, in a voice that didn't match anything. Georgia said something about her sink and moved on down the aisle, cheerful, no idea she'd just set something on fire. Miriam looked straight ahead at the shelf. "You should get the expensive caulk," she said. "You're right about it." "Miriam, I'm not doing this here." Her voice was completely level, which was worse. "I'm going to go pay for the threshold." And she walked to the register with her chin up like a person who has been managing her own face since she was 8 years old. I stood in aisle 12 and thought about how the last time I hurt her feelings, I did it by accident, and this time I did it by keeping my mouth shut. She drove herself home. I drove behind her like an idiot. At her house, she put the threshold on the floor and said, "You can come in. I'm not going to be fun. That's fine." We sat on the 2 folding chairs in her kitchen. No coffee this time. "I froze," I said. "I saw. Georgia sits 2 desks from me. She'll tell the office. My supervisor already looked at my visit count on your house once and asked why 6 trips. What did you tell him? That the owner kept requesting me and the file kept staying open, which is true. So it's a work problem." "No," I said. "That's the part I want to be honest about. It's not a work problem. Nobody at the county cares who I date." I stood there, and I didn't say a word because I don't know what to call you. She nodded slowly. "Okay, the inspection part is over. It ended when I signed your paper. The other part isn't over." My hands were on my knees like a man in a waiting room. I don't know how to introduce the woman who ruined lunch for me to a coworker in aisle 12. "Yeah," she said. "That's a real sentence. I hate it, but it's real." We sat there for a second. "I need to say something, and I need you to let me finish," she said, "because I've been careful for over a month, and I'm done being careful. Go. I haven't asked you for anything since the day you knocked on my door. On purpose. I told the office to send you every time, and then I never. Once asked you what we were, because I figured I don't get to ask. I'm the one who did the thing, so I've been sitting very still, hoping you'd walk toward me on your own." She took a breath. "And you did. You came back with no clipboard. You keep a shirt in your truck. You know how I take my coffee and you fix my back door without being asked." "I know, but tonight I found out I'm not a person you can say out loud." Her voice cracked on that once, and she pushed it back down. "I'll take whatever you can actually give me. I mean that. If you can give me 2 nights a week and no name, I'd probably say yes, and I'd hate myself, and I'd do it anyway. Miriam, let me finish. I'm asking one question and it's not about forgiveness. She looked right at me. Is there a future in this? Because if there isn't, tell me now, and I will still be glad it happened, and I'll go paint my house. And here's the thing. There was a version of me that could have taken the easy exit. Say something sad and honest about how the past is too heavy, and leave, and be the injured party forever. I'd be entitled to it. I've been entitled to it since I was 8. But I sat there in her kitchen and I thought about what my actual life looked like on the nights I didn't come here. I can't forgive you yet, I said. I'm not going to say I can. It might be a year. It might never be all the way. I know. But I don't want to be a guy who eats lunch at his desk and also sleeps with somebody he won't name. I made myself keep going. So here's what I've got. I want to date you. Actually date you on purpose, out loud, where people can see it. Not because you earned it with drywall, because I want to and I'm choosing it. She didn't move for a second. Say that again, she said. I want to date you. The out loud part, out loud, where people can see it. And then, because I'm me, I'm going to text Georgia tonight. She's going to be insufferable about it. And Miriam laughed and it came out wet and awful. She put her hand over her mouth and said, Okay. Yes. Obviously, yes. There's a condition, I said. Anything. When I have a bad day about it, I'm going to tell you it's a bad day, and you're not going to fix it. You're going to let me have it. Deal, she said. I'll be terrible at that. I know. Then she got up, took my face in both hands, and said the only promise she's ever made me. I'll be worth it. Every day, however long it takes. Don't put it in a folder, I said. Too late. I texted Georgia from the truck that night. 2 sentences. She replied, I knew it. Then she replied again, You failed her house 11 times? Which is not what happened, and which is now permanently how the office tells the story. We dated carefully after that. Real dating. I picked her up. We ate at places with actual chairs. She met nobody's family. I met nobody's family, and neither of us pretended that was strange. Twice a week, then more. I had 2 bad days in the first stretch, and I said so both times, out loud, exactly like I promised. First one, she started to argue, and caught herself, and just made me a sandwich instead. Second one, she said nothing at all, and sat next to me on the floor for 40 minutes. She is still bad at it. She's getting better. 3 weeks after that night in her kitchen, I was at her place helping unpack the last of the boxes. She'd been living out of them for about a month because she'd rather build a wall than fold a towel. She was digging through a box labeled Attic Misc and went completely quiet. It was a class photo, 3rd grade, 20-something kids on risers in front of a brick wall. She held it out. 2nd row. There she was, front left, grinning. And there I was, back right, half behind a taller kid, doing a thing with my mouth I still do when I want to be somewhere else. We both looked at it for a while. I could throw it out, she said. No, Malcolm, keep it, I said. That kid didn't get anything good out of that year. He's allowed to be in the room now. She put it on the mantel. Didn't ask if that was okay, just put it there. Then she wiped her face with her wrist and said, Okay, boxes. And then I gave her the thing I'd made. I printed it on the county form, the actual form, off my own printer, because I am who I am. Across the top I'd typed, personal punch list, non-binding. 11 items, same number as the first one. Item 1, kitchen stools. 2, because folding chairs are not furniture. Item 2, second coat on the living room wall, color remains beige. Item 3, ceiling stain in living room, cosmetic, shaped like a boot. Item 4, threshold at back door, installed by owner, inspector approves, grudgingly. And so on down to item 11, which said, hang the class photo somewhere permanent. She read the whole page. Then she read it again. Then she looked up with her jaw set and said, Are you serious? You wrote me another list. It's non-binding. It's 11 items. It seemed appropriate. You typed color remains beige on a government form. It's mourning linen, I said. I've come around. She told me I was the worst man in the county. She said it while getting a folder out of the kitchen drawer, the good folder, the one with the tabs. She put my joke punch list in the front pocket, in front of the occupancy certificate. That's not where that goes, I said. It's my folder. That's the legal document. That's a piece of paper I made at my kitchen table. Yeah, she said. That's why it's in front. So, 2 homes still. She's got hers, I've got my apartment, and we're not in a hurry about it. I don't stay every night. She doesn't ask me to. I still don't know if forgiveness is a thing that arrives all at once, or if it's just a lot of Tuesdays. Some days I look at her, and there's no third grade in the room at all. Some days there is. She lets me have those, mostly. But last week I ate lunch in the break room at work. Sat down at the table with 3 people. Nothing happened. Nobody got up. I didn't tell her about it. I'm saving it.